Okay, good evening, everybody. We have a very special guest in the house. We have from Datamin, Artem Demchenkov and Shruti Janardhan. Correct me if I mispronounce that, but we are very happy to have you here, friends.
Thank you, David, for inviting us. And yes, we'll definitely try to do our best and show you the best out of Datamin, and in general as well speak about data observability, and particularly a part of this, which is called operational data observability, operational data analytics.
Sounds perfect. So we can start with your presentation.
Okay, so I'm starting to share my screen. Perfect. So my name is Artem. I'm currently based in Berlin. I'm currently CEO and co-founder of Datamin. Before that, I was co-founder at a couple of other companies. The most recent one was Beely, which is a buy now, pay later startup, FinTech startup from Germany. It's a trendy topic about buy now, pay later, and that's what we were also doing. And what is interesting about this company is exactly that. That's one of the places where the idea of Datamin and in general, the experience with data observability for me personally was born. Yeah, you can find me in LinkedIn. Since you are here, you probably have seen the announcement. So you can always ping me in LinkedIn and add to connections. You can also find some of my articles on Medium and on YouTube. If you just Google my name, you will see some talks which I've made in the past, which are not only about data, but some other specific technical problems that I was facing. I usually speak about practical problems and solutions for that. So it's not something generic, it's always practical experience, including live demos, which we will also have today. So in terms of agenda, we will start with talking about such an interesting aspect, which is kind of trendy nowadays as data-driven culture. Why is it important? Who should adopt this culture? What kind of organizations, and why this is still a problem, although it's a trendy topic. There are still not enough software to actually bring it properly in life of organizations. Afterwards, we will also focus on such an aspect of it as operational analytics. Specifically, we will also compare it with traditional data observability, although it's actually weird to use a word traditional for something that exists for like 3-4 years, but it's already getting a little bit branched if you look at the data observability world, and we will talk about these branches. Afterwards, we will look at the live demo of Datamin that I and Shruti we are coming from, and basically we will look at, we will also name some of our competitors and other products which are on the market. And afterwards, the most interesting probably part is to look at where is actually the space for Datamin and the entire operational analytics in different modern data stacks. We will look at 3 data stacks, the traditional BI-oriented one, the one which is more common for startups, and the one which is more common for enterprise and in general large organizations. So to start with, let's look at these 3 wordings, three sentences that we got from people whom we interviewed for our interview series that we are publishing in our blog. And what is interesting about this is that everybody sees that there are a lot of problems on the data market and there are a lot of data opportunities on the data market still. Although the data market is very crowded, you all as data engineers, you of course know even better than me that there are a lot of products on the data market. There are a lot of products that are taking care of ETL, storage, transformation, data lineage, and so on and so on. But still, there are a lot of opportunities. One of the opportunities which we see here is coming from a wording of Scott Taylor, who says good decisions made on bad data are just bad decisions you don't know about yet. And this is exactly the opportunity that I started to think personally a few years ago while working at Beely as CTO, because comparing my personal experience, let's say 8 years ago, when I first time went into the FinTech world, with my personal experience like 3 years ago, when I was already a CTO, it was completely two different situations in terms of data-driven cultures in the organization. What we mean by data-driven cultures is when everybody in the organizations want to have an opportunity to take data-driven decisions. Product managers want to take their decisions based on the feedback coming from customers, or based on the traction of what customers were doing with a product. Payment operations wanted to take decisions based on the payments results or payment statistics or traffic that was coming with their platforms. Scoring corporations who are responsible for a risk assessment and fraud detection, they also wanted to take data-driven decisions. It was not like that 10 years ago. It was not like that 8 years ago. If I look at my personal experience 8 years ago, whenever our non-technical colleagues, let's call them like this, wanted to know something about data, they went to our BI or data teams. They asked them, please retrieve data from database for us. Please build us a graph or a diagram. That's how it looked like back then. But already 2-3 years ago, it was completely different. If we look at Beely, my previous company, our CEO was learning SQL in order to retrieve data on his own. Our product managers were very advanced in SQL. They were extremely advanced. They were able to write complicated queries to retrieve payments, to match different items in different tables, in different databases, in different statuses, and so on and so on. So they wanted to really be as data-driven as possible. And that's why what we see with all of that is that data tools are moving from fancy dashboards that were a privilege of mostly technical people to use, to that is deeply embedded. That's on the market. And the problem is that even with this opportunity, modern businesses, even if they accumulate a lot of data, unfortunately, they don't use the potential of it or use enough of this potential. So, for example, they don't have monitoring of data expectations. They don't have real-time insights. And even worse, they don't automate manual data-dependent processes. And then all of that leads us to these statistics that we pulled from different reports that are also mentioned here on the slide. And these statistics is really shocking. I keep wondering every time when I see this slide, because we also have it on our website, that these numbers are so huge and that the companies are still ready to tackle these risks and these costs for not having automated operational data observability. So, for example, if you look at 60% of workers say that they could save 6 or more hours a week with automation. 6 more hours a week, 6 or more hours a week, it's like 20% of their working hours. So 60% of data collected today has lost some or even all of its business, legal, or regulatory value. This problem we all know. When someone comes to us, like one of our business stakeholders comes to us as data engineers and says, we need to store all the data that we are getting from a third-party data provider. We need to store all of this data in our database. Maybe at some point we will get to it and we will look at this data and we will use it somehow. In most of the cases, it never happens. We just store this data and it gets lost and forgotten. And all the other numbers, like 50% of companies still use manual processes for monitoring, which is extremely, of course, time-consuming and is definitely a waste of manpower. 40% of data teams' time is spent on tackling poor data quality. And this is what I can definitely confirm from my experience in the past as well. What I've done, I've even converted this number to the cost purely to money, to dollars or euros, which we can see here. So working with bad data or working with broken data, working with data that has some potential, but it's not used, has 3 different types of costs for companies. Direct costs. This one is exactly an equivalent of a time that operations and engineers spend together on discoveries, data problems, and fixing what these data problems cause. And this one is based on my experience. I calculated as 8.5K euros per month minimal. So this is the lowest value for an average fintech company. Purely when some broken data come to us from open banking KPIs or scoring providers and broke our system, broke our operational processes. This is the time converted to money of our operational people and software and data engineers trying to investigate it. And of course, there are 2 other types of costs: indirect costs and opportunity costs, which are usually even higher, but it's not so easy to calculate precisely. It's just an estimation. But of course, when the system goes down and customers start complaining and the company starts losing customers, that's of course terrible and can lead even to millions. Or opportunity costs, for example, which is a potential revenue lost, which never actually make it to the wallets of the company. So that's why there are 2 actual categories of data software that can help fixing these issues or help making this situation better: operational analytics and data observability. Operational analytics is what is space where we operate as Datamin, and it can be considered a part of data observability. Data observability is something that you already know much more, because it has quite a lot of stable products on the market, such as Monte Carlo or Great Expectations and others already. And it's interesting, as mentioned at the beginning of that, is that data observability is also a young area. It's there maybe for 3-4 years only, but operational analytics is even younger. All the companies that we have on the market, they were founded either last year or in 2020. So it's a pretty new area. If you compare those 2, operational analytics is focused on automating actions based on the status of data. which means it's either proactive automation or reactive automation on something that is happening with the data when the data gets changed. Data observability is focused on data anomalies, broken data, and broken pipelines. That's the first difference. The second difference is that in operational analytics, you cannot actually use any software, or you cannot benefit if this software doesn't know what business logic is behind the data. So what processes and when produce certain data, and how it is actually connected to data model, and how it is connected to different pieces of data connected to each other, being in different sources. In data observability, it's not really necessary, because what's important is in what status data is produced, and that this status matches expectations. But it's not as important as in operational analytics to know business logic behind this data. And of course, the first two differences lead us to the third difference. Data observability is more for data engineers and software engineers. So it's more for technical people, because it's very deeply technical topic. The software is very technical, and there is no way that operations or product or business development people can actually benefit from it. In operational analytics, it's exactly the opposite, because it has to be as non-technical as possible, as no code as possible, because the main users are the ones who directly work with customers, the ones who are responsible for customers' money, or customers' goods, or customers' services, which are delivery operations, payment operations, scoring operations, risk operations, service operations, customer success, and so on and so on. So these are the main, let's say, users or consumers. Data analysts are also there, because in many cases, in many companies, they work simply very closely to operations. That's why we can also consider them as one of our main users and main target categories. So Datamin is a representative of this operational analytics. We are a no-code and also SQL interface-based software, which can integrate with different data sources, from SQL-based to pure APIs. And basically what we do, we provide data and operation teams an opportunity to configure certain data expectations and automate their manual actions based on the status of it. It can be based on certain KPIs, thresholds, metrics, or purely based on SQL queries. We will see it in the demo, which we will have right now. So we'll go to the actually third part of our presentation, which is a little bit of a live demo to give it a try. So Datamin is actually quite a young product still. We are less than 6 months on the market, but we already have some interesting functionality, which is very operational driven. So basically, this is our main dashboard, and customers, when they work with Datamin, they work with 3 categories of items: data sources, destinations, and workflows. So data sources is a self-explaining thing. So it's purely the places where they store this data. It can be something like a data warehouse like Snowflake or Google Cloud BigQuery, or also AWS Redshift, any sort of data warehouse. Or it can be purely a database like MySQL or Postgres. or it also can be some modern data storages or systems that have data storages behind, like Immuta, PlanetScale, or even Elasticsearch. On top of that, we also support a bunch of API-based data sources, such as HubSpot, Salesforce, and basically any API that returns JSON. Because we will see it in the use cases afterwards. This is pretty important for many customers to be able to use this software as data sources. So as soon as it's configured, customers need to configure destinations, and these destinations is basically where they want to send a result of our workflows. So the result of Datamin's work need to be sent somewhere. And here we support a few types of destinations. We support a generic destination, generic destinations such as emails, SMS, or API calls. Or we also support particular software such as Slack, Jira, Incident.io, Tableau, HubSpot, Salesforce, Looker, and many others. So basically, the purpose of these destinations is to accept the information that is coming from an operational software. And this information can go there in different forms. It can be reports like CSV or XML or PDF files. It can be alerts that go to Slack, for example, or urgent alerts in the format of SMS. Hey, wake up, or payment system is broken, we see it in database, something like that. Or it can also be different tasks or pipelines that are triggered behind a certain API. So we can trigger backend APIs, we can trigger deployment, we can trigger Apache Airflow pipelines, or we can also be triggered from this software. So these are the destinations. And then the core of the system is what we call workflows. Workflows, we use workflows because it's the easiest thing for customers to work with. Everybody is familiar with the concept of workflows. They have it in different systems, and it's basically pretty common for operations as target users to use workflows in their daily routine. So these workflows can be created from scratch, or it can be created from a template, from templates. So if we create them from scratch, we see 8 different types of tasks. It's query or API call. So usually queries and API calls are the first ones, because this is how customers retrieve data. Afterwards, if they, for example, use a few different sources, they can merge data that are coming from them using merge task. And when the data is merged with each other, it can be sent to a certain condition block that makes a certain comparison of different values. For example, in a condition block, we can say, calculate an amount, a summary of the amounts in the data set, and compare it with a certain target, for example, $10,000. And depending on if it is true or false, make the next call. So for example, if it is true, for each item in this data set, and that's why we will use a task called for each. So for each item in the data set, let's use a transformer, which usually transforms data into different formats. So use a transformer and transform this data set to CSV and send an email. So as simple as this. So we transform this to CSV, and then we can send an email to customer support with a certain message which we can also type here and attach this one as, I don't know, payments.csv and send it to them. So this is basically one of the example of workflows which shows different tasks, but we can go to more practical workflows here. If we, for example, create them from templates, we have a library of templates here which allow two different types of workflows, either workflows which actually have some functionality. So for example, if the system detects failed payments, it can notify payment operations. So this is the this is what we call data observability in action. The system observes the databases or data storages. If it detects failed payments, it sends it to operations, and then operations take some stuff and take some actions manually, which is good. This is a notification. What can also be done, the company can build a certain actions behind an API, and then we trigger an API and we try to fix this failed payment automatically. So this is a functional workflow. And the second group of workflows is something KPI oriented. For example, if someone wants to monitor an annual recurrent revenue or a monthly recurrent revenue or lifetime value of a user or many other KPIs, what they want to monitor, they can also use workflows from templates. Or another example of a generic workflow is when they want to actually transform some data sets to some formats and send it to particular stakeholder, for example, financial team or a head of financial team who uses these reports on a weekly basis, something like that. So the idea of all of that, as you can see, is to automate manual actions for non-technical users, and also help you as technical stakeholders of data to get rid of endless requests and tickets in Jira that are coming to you all the time from non-technical stakeholders in the company, with asking questions, asking to retrieve some data, to do some data with it, to investigate some problems and stuff like that. So basically, it's a mutual benefit for the entire organization, which automatically leads us to the topic of data-driven culture, which we discussed at the beginning. So if both engineers and business and operational stakeholders benefit from using something that is based on the actual data, this automatically increases a level of data-driven culture and data-driven decision-making in organization. That's basically our mission. That's where we are. So this is roughly how the workflows look like. And then the last part of the product demo is probably to mention that these workflows can be run manually. That's what, yeah, we'll probably look at a more advanced one. So let's take this workflow. So it can be run manually, and which is a common case for workflows which don't need certain schedule, which are, or alternatively, which are usually run on demand. So customers can just go here, click on this button, and then the workflow gets run, and then they can also control the entire output. That's quite a common case, but not the main one. The main case, the most common case is to schedule these workflows and run it with a certain schedule. Let's say every Monday at 7 a.m. or something like this, or every minute, or every hour, every week for certain reports. So that's how it, the most common way of running these workflows. Or these workflows can also be triggered from external software, which you already use. For example, if you use Apache Airflow, if you use Jenkins, or any other software to manage pipelines, to manage workflows, you can trigger Datamin's workflows from your external systems via API. For that, we have an extended version of our REST API where you can manage all the workflows and get all the information about them and also trigger them from your external systems. So this was the demo part. Of course, we have more functionality here, but this is not as important for our data observability topic as these ones. If you want, you can always create an account in the system afterwards and try it for free. So the first 2 weeks are for free. You don't need any card connected to nor any other payment method. Just create an account and start trying it. And give us a feedback, especially afterwards. What I wanted to talk about in the final part of the presentation is about where is the place actually for such software in a modern data stack. How to integrate it actually into the modern data stack. And here we will look, as I mentioned, at 3 different data stacks. The first one is a traditional BI-oriented data stack. What I mean here is that the main consumers of all the data which are produced are either business intelligence or data science. So we have a few data sources here. We have an ETL or ELT process. We have a data warehouse. It can be Google BigQuery, Snowflake, anything, doesn't really matter, where all the information is collected from different data sources. We have something like Looker or Sisense or Tableau connected to it as a BI software. We may also have dbt and Apache Airflow for data modeling and transformation here, but not really. It's not really necessary. And basically everything works. And this is, I would say, based on my experience, maybe based on your experience as well, is the most common data stack, which is BI oriented. And then it produces, in the end, it produces graphs, reports, and diagrams in Looker that are used for business intelligence. So where is the place for operational analytics here? We can say there are 2 ways of integrating Datamin or any other operational analytics software into this stack. The first one is to place Datamin as close as possible to the data source where the data is actually created. Not where it's aggregated, which is data warehouse, but the place where it's actually created. Because if you want to make your operational analytics as effective as possible, you need to minimize the gap between the time when the data is created and the time when you take actions on it. As shorter this period is better it is, because the chance is lower than this data will produce other data which might be broken. So imagine if we talk about broken data purely, if you work with a third-party data provider which sends you some data and you see that this data doesn't have the full set of information which you expect. And this data, when handled by applications, your web applications, mobile applications, or any other kind of, they can produce even more broken data. And in the end, this broken data can affect customers, which is the worst scenario. So in order to prevent all of these stuff, all of these steps in the chain, you need to place Datamin as close as possible to the place where the data is created, which is your data source, which is most probably in this scenario, your production database, MySQL, Postgres, MongoDB, whatever is used. So Datamin is connected there, and then It generates API calls, Slack notifications, emails, whatever is important for operational tasks in your organizations. So this is the traditional operational analytics way of connecting Datamin to data sources. But of course, not every task requires such an urgent and such an almost real-time connection to data. It's not really necessary because we know that in some cases we can wait. So if we don't talk about broken data, but if we talk about the data that we use for producing some reports, it's fine if we connect Datamin to data warehouse, and even if it takes time to collect data there from different data sources, it's not a big deal, and we can connect to it. And losing all this time and this sense of urgency is not bad. It's expected. So we connect Datamin to data warehouse, and we use for all the tasks which we just discussed, we use the data warehouse as a data source. It also sometimes important because data warehouse has data which is already transformed from a certain state to another state, which is more comfortable for certain tasks. That's why in this scenario, it's also good to connect Datamin to data warehouse. So this was about the traditional BI-oriented data stack. Another more typical scenario for smaller organizations or startups even is what we can call poor data stack, which means sometimes even no data stack at all. So what we have is production database, which is MySQL. We have some data in Google Analytics. We have some data in CRM, can be Salesforce, can be HubSpot, can be anything else. And we have a human, a customer success specialist, or a salesperson, or an operational analyst who has a task to pull this data from all these data sources, merge it somewhere, usually in Excel or Google spreadsheet, and put it at least somewhere into the BI software, can be Tableau or Looker again, in order to build graphs and tables and try to analyze this data somehow. So this is what we hear from many potential customers, and that's what Shruti can confirm as well. Based on her experience, we hear it quite often from people who don't have really data departments or who don't have proper dedicated DevOps or software engineers to build a proper data stack. They quite often struggle. They, on a daily basis, they put from different sources, merge it somewhere, and put it somewhere else for analytics. So what Datamin can do here, we can simply replace all of this manual work. So instead of having a human in between of data sources and representation, which is BI software in this case, we can put their Datamin, and Datamin will do all the job from pulling this information, merging it, and putting it into the BI software. The difference between, let's say, traditional ETL software and Datamin in this case is that it doesn't require any data storage, so any separate data warehouse, and it doesn't require data specialists to configure it. Everything can be done in a no-code manner very easily by non-technical people. And then the rest they need to do is just to connect to BI software and analyze it and do whatever they want with it. So this is quite a common use case for small companies. And then the advanced data stack is when company has everything, is when the company really invests a lot into the data. They have ETL, they have reverse ETL, they have Tableau, they have dbt, they have some collaborative tools like 𝐼𝐴𝐶, they have data quality observability like Monte Carlo, can be many other software. So when we see such kinds of data stacks, we can be sure that this company really takes care of data, is really interested in data-driven decision making, and is really ready to invest money and time into building and maintaining all of that. So in this scenario, it doesn't really matter for Datamin, because for Datamin, all the previous use cases which we discussed are still valid. So we simply connect Datamin either to data warehouse or data source, and it does the entire job. Because what we have seen, even in enterprise companies, even if the company is ready to invest into a huge data stack, it still has problems with access to data for some stakeholders. Even in enterprise companies, the same problem will still be there, still be in place, that some non-technical people don't have access to data, or because it's not in data warehouse, and building a pipeline for that takes time. So what they can do using Datamin, they simply get back to this scenario. They connect us directly to their data sources, to the BI software, and automate the process. This is one thing. Or another thing is, even in big data-driven decision-making companies, the need of operational analytics is even higher than in companies who don't invest in that. That's why this scenario from the very first use case is also valid for them. So that's also why, no matter what kind of data stack we take, we can always find a proper place for Datamin or any other operational software to be used. So this was actually pretty much the last piece of information that I wanted to share. And let's go to conclusions. So if we speak about operational analytics versus traditional data observability, traditional data observability products are good at detecting data anomalies and finding broken data, but they are too technical and they are not designed for automating operational tasks. Datamin and other operational analytics software, as part of the data observability stack, can automate manual operational tasks. Datamin and operational software is used to immediately notify stakeholders if data produced by business processes don't match expectations. And this approach saves a lot of human time and also costs. So it helps organizations spare thousands of dollars every month, which we have actually seen here. So again, direct costs. This one is much, much higher than having a proper operational observability software in place. So that's why, yeah, we came to the end basically of the presentation. And I really encourage you to either go to our website and try it on your own, or in general, take a look at the observability space from the data analytics perspective, from the automation of data analytics and converting it to action. Look at the software which is in place and think about using it in your companies. So also follow us on LinkedIn for more information, and YouTube and Medium as well, because we are publishing articles and video tutorials about what we've just talked about very actively. So every week there is a new piece of information that can help you. Yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And let's go to questions.
Okay, we have questions in the chat. I'm going to read. Hey Artem, as far as I have seen in your Datamin site, seems you want to develop this as a product. To where you aim to bring your product?
So you mean from the long-term perspective?
Ivan, maybe you can.
Yeah, I see it in the chat, and basically, I think these 3 questions from Ivan I can answer as a complex. So basically, yes, we are not at Crunchbase, although we raised the pre-seed round and we have a VC which is behind us, and we have a few business angels. So we are backed by Flash Ventures in Berlin and a few business angels, including one data engineer from Spotify, for example. So we are just not announcing it yet because of various reasons, but it's not a top secret, and it can be basically Googled in other sources. It's not on Crunchbase because we didn't do a press release for that. In terms of where we want to bring this product and what the main work to be done is basically in the long-term perspective, we see us as an operational system for entire operational analytics, which means that on top of what we are already having, we want to cover a lot of additional tasks and aspects of operational work. For example, compliance, security. Compliance is in general one of the most important topics for our industries that we are focused on. And we are focused, I didn't mention in the presentation, we are mostly focused on FinTech, delivery, e-commerce, insurance tech, health tech, and these areas where compliance is important. So automating of compliance tasks is important for us. We also want to have more machine learning and artificial intelligence aspects so that we can really predict data trends and allow customers to automate actions based on that. So these are the most important parts for us, let's say for the entire 6 months. And then we see where the market goes and where the customers go and where the feedback from customers also lead us, because it's a pretty new area and we are growing together with the demand which is coming from customers.
Okay, we also have another question in the chat. The question is also from Ivan, and it goes like this. Do you already have meta plane on scope?
Do you already have meta plane on scope? You mean as a potential integration for us? Because Metaplane is pretty much the same data observability part, data observability stack, and it was in the presentation as well, I think. So do you mean as a potential integration or as what exactly?
As a competitor in data observability, yep, same category as Monte Carlo.
Yeah. We don't actually feel this as a competition from the data observability part. If you look at our competitors, we are competing with this one, with operational analytics. Data observability ones, we tackle 2 completely different tasks and categories of users. So data observability is for technical people. We are mostly focused on non-technical. So that's why such ones as Monte Carlo, for example, is not a competitor. We have customers who use us both. It's just used for different purposes.
So they complement each other, right?
Yeah. We have customers who use us as integrations with Metabase, for example. I have another question here about dbt and Apache Airflow as well. So this one is the same thing. In dbt and Apache Airflow, it's not something that operations can use, and it's not something that is that can be used for daily routine for the tasks and the problems that they have right now on their plate in front of them. For example, hey, there is a failed payment. We want to detect it and we want to automate how we react to this failed payment. It's not for dbt and Airflow. Airflow and dbt is for working with data in the data warehouse, which already went through a certain list of stages. And usually these are the instruments for data engineers. For example, with dbt, you need to write configuration, you need to write dbt expectations. Is not something that non-technical people are capable of, and it's not something they will use. If we tell them this, they will definitely send us to data engineers, and then we're getting back to the problem of data engineers being a bottleneck. Our idea is more like to help data engineers to get rid of certain unnecessary job. That's why we want to be as non-technical as possible.
Okay, there is another question. If I have a friend who's an ML and BI director in USA, in a USA consultant company, and I want him to be aware of these new industry trends, in which email could I reach you for requesting a demo?
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. It's very simple email. It's just artem@datamin.io. I will send to the chat.
Please put it on the chat. We have some people who are interested in knowing more. Also, I have a question, Artem. Maybe are you considering hiring maybe more people for your engineer team, or maybe another area for Datamin? And if so, are you considering maybe considering people from the talents from Latin America, maybe?
Yeah, we always hiring, although we are still a small team. We are just 7 people at the moment, but you can always text me and send your CV to the same email. If we have some positions at this time, we will definitely be in touch. Otherwise, we will just keep someone in mind, and we'll get back to this CV as soon as we have an open position. I can also recommend, basically, because here in Berlin, I have a good network from my previous companies, and basically in general, a good network of companies. If I see a certain need, I can definitely recommend this person and forward the CV further.
Okay,
so also
great.
send it to me.
Okay, do we have more questions? Come on, people, don't be shy. You can write it on the
yeah,
chat.
let's take a look. Were there any other question that we missed? Yeah, the one from Jefferson we answered. Okay, that's not a question. Yeah, seems like we don't have any. Oh yeah, go ahead. The size, yeah, the size of the company is actually, what is interesting about this approach is, generally speaking, it's of course more like small and medium-sized enterprises towards enterprise. But there are exceptions. For example, regulated companies. So companies who have a certain regulatory requirements, like companies that have to comply with PCI DSS or any other financial standard. In their case, their regulators require as much automation as possible. So that's why in this scenario, even if a company is still small, like 10 people or something like that, they might have already a need in automating certain data observability or operational analytics. That's why we are also looking at such companies as well.
Okay, we are on time, and okay, Mr. An says thanks. And we don't have any more questions. So, okay, Avner says, what are the main business problems that Datamin helps to solve? What do directors benefit from this tool?
Business problems. So basically, it's everything that is usually done manually by operators. For example, yeah, as mentioned during the presentation, if we take financial operations, what do they usually do? Like payment operations, what do these people usually do? They usually work with bank transactions and invoices and payments. So basically, if it's a FinTech startup, they produce certain outcome as bank transactions that they need to send to a bank every day, a few times per day, and they need to get back a result from a bank after processing these transactions. At the same time, customers pay to these companies, or these companies pool money from customers' bank accounts. And there are so many things that can go wrong, or so many things that need a particular attention. For example, like imagine, I can tell you based on my previous experience. In my previous company, we had data monitoring that was built by ourselves, just based on certain open source products. And we were monitoring 50 different cases. So we were automating 50 different tasks per day. And it can be like starting from very simple things like failed payments and the actions that we needed to do based on failed payments, or some tricky cases when customers needed to transfer us some money manually. But in this scenario, customers always make mistakes. If, for example, they need to pay us for 3 different invoices, they will most probably pay as one transaction. So what they will do, they will just summarize 3 amounts and of course made mistakes and send us like 10 cents more, 10 cents less. And then our system need to understand what to do with this amount, how to allocate it to open invoices. And in order to automate all of that things, a certain software is necessary. So that's exactly what operational analytics is for.
Okay, and now another question says, as far as I have seen working as an independent consultant in this data stuff, there is a huge opportunity area for companies and startups in LATAM of being more aware of modern data stack. Considering your customer ideal profile should be already aware of this, which other feature, quote unquote, features or traits should have your ideal customer you're aiming to? Reformulating my question, what your buyer persona organization looks like, to who you are aiming globally.
Yeah. So basically, in terms of industries, it's, as I mentioned, FinTech, e-commerce, quick commerce, security, compliance, So in general, all the industries which work either with critical data or customers as money or customers as goods. In terms of target buyer in the organization, usually it's either head of operations or head of data or CTO. So based on our experience, these are the categories of departments that usually own the budget for such software. In terms of target users, yes, it's operations, data, or software engineers as people who are involved into configuring and building all these workflows. And in terms of target consumers of the output which is produced by these workflows, these are the same people plus some more non-technical departments such as product, customer success, sales, business development, maybe sometimes some parts of operational departments which are responsible for certain deliveries or assemblings as well. So that's roughly the scope of our buyers and personas, buying personas and organizations.
Okay, we had a lot of questions from Ivan. Thank you for your participation, Ivan.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ivan. Exactly, very good questions.
Another
if you
question.
if you want to discuss it further, send me an email, and definitely we can talk about that.
Okay, Jasmine says, congratulations, Artem, for the talk. Have you considered a marketplace for some add-ons like bank reconciliation tools or scripts of automating tasks?
You mean aiding us to these marketplaces, right? Or having kind of a marketplace on our side where external developers can develop something and customers can use it. So which one? The second case.
The second one.
Yeah, that's what we always have in mind. We already actually have a part of this feature, the templates, which we have seen, the library of templates. Organizations can also create templates from their workflows and can share it with others inside the organization or outside of organization even. So it's not just templates that are created by us, but also the ones that are created by users. In the long-term perspective, we want to have a marketplace for that, like popular software has, like HubSpot, Salesforce, Jira, and so on. It's just a little bit too early, simply because we don't have yet such a wide user base. But definitely it's a good idea, and we are considering that in the future. I hope that answers the question. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So yeah, I think we are complete here. And as mentioned, if you have any other question, you can always send it to me or Shruti, and we'll answer you very quickly. So basically, we are still small company, very early phase, and in touch with everybody. So yeah, just drop us an email.